The outside prowls his halls. Clew lit a rope of incense over the dancing flame of a yellow candle. He dropped it into the brazier where it gushed tendrils of smoke into the air. Woody embers permeated the conclave, the healing smell of 1,000 past ceremonies. He pressed 2 fingers into the brazier, coating them in ash. Finley, still unsure of his actions, followed Clew's lead in the ceremony by kneeling. 2 months had passed since Finley joined with the transients. Today, he became one of them. Clew pressed his ashen fingers up against Finley's forehead, smearing an arch across his skin. "I awaken you to your intermediary journey, Finley," Clew said, voice low. "From this day until the hereafter, you are reborn on this path. To this journey, I pledge my purpose." Finley spoke in practiced words that still shook. "Rise, Finley, and see your fellow transients," Clew said. Finley stood and turned towards the other transients. The conclave rose in welcome. Almost double the congregation had come today as had the day of his arrival. Clew cleared his throat. "I declare this a day of celebration." He rarely allowed days of rest, but over a year had passed since the last initiation. "We have a new brother. Toil not today with your chores. Let us give thanks and meditate on our perfected lives in the hereafter." The faces before Clew broke into joy, and he knew he had made the right move. The people bowed to the ground. "In the hereafter," they said in unison. Immediately, they began to disperse, many rushing forward to congratulate Finley. Hannah wrapped him in a hug. Clew gave Finley an encouraging smile before excusing himself. He could not bring himself to partake in the celebrations. Instead, he would find a quiet place to meditate outside. He exited the conclave into the grand hall. A short walk along the red carpet allowed him to emerge outside into a walled garden. Grass, trees, and even a river decorated the grounds, contributing to a tranquil sense of spirituality. A breeze blew over him, carrying sour air across his nose. Air on Avalonia hadn't always been breathable, but a carefully crafted ecosystem had allowed humans to make a proper home on this planet. Still, the air had never quite felt right by Earth standard. The sky was ablaze with nebulous colors. Baltica hung low in the air, a brown planet speckled with human buildings. Rodinia was little more than a pinprick on the horizon. It would grow larger this month before once again becoming indistinguishable from a star. Clew walked along the garden path. He would cross the river and meditate under a tree on the far side of the grounds. Other transients were also out, some in meditation, others carrying out their initiatives. Still others were emerging from the ceremony. Most were revived from Earth. All were transients on an intermediary journey to the hereafter. In helping one another achieve that perfected state, they all were bettered and found meaning in this transitionary life. Clew neared the bridge over the stream. He paused. A woman was standing on the bridge, watching the rippling water dance over stones. She wasn't a transient, as evidenced by her dark, manufactured clothes. She was impossible to miss. Clew stopped walking just before the bridge. The woman looked at Clew. "Clew Collins?" Panic flooded Clew. No one here knew that name. He looked about himself to see if he could summon security or some form of help. Clew cleared his throat to lower his voice back to its normal level. "How did you get in here?" "Right," the woman said, clicking her tongue and pointing at Clew. "My name is Jolene. I'm with the Murphy Corporation." "I see," Clew said. "Why are you here, exactly?" "No small talk," Jolene remarked. "Very well. We both know you're a manipulative little diva cultist, so we'll skip the part where I judge the crap out of you and get down to the part where I offer you a job." Clew felt himself take an involuntary step backwards. "I never applied for a job. I think you should leave." Jolene pouted her lips and danced closer to Clew. This isn't the type of job you apply for. However, we've reviewed your qualifications, peculiar as they are, and believe you would be an ideal fit for our newest opening." Clew stretched out his arms and adorned his inclusive smile. "We have no jobs here, no money or desires. Those are things of the prior life." Hello?" Jolene tried to tap at Clew's head, but he backed away. "How the hell did you create this place without jobs?" "Our initiatives dictate the tasks we perform here," Clew said, maintaining his serene voice. Any of the transients could be listening in. Besides, this Jolene might be convinced to join them. Jolene puffed her lips and angled her chin into her neck. "Super cool. Sounds like a job." Clew's insides drained out. He needed to get this woman out of here. "I prefer to think I gathered the pieces. That something grew from it merely confirms that my people needed a refuge during this intermediary life." "Whatever, man." Jolene tapped the ground with her toe and rolled her eyes. "I'm not the one with 20,000 devotees. So, who am I to say you're using the wrong words?" "Would you join me in my office?" Clew asked. "Ew, no," Jolene said. "I'm just here to offer you the job. And yes, you're going to accept because, unfortunately, what you're doing here is illegal." Clew scanned the grounds. No one was in earshot, but someone could be listening from under the bridge. "We are good people, trying to find our path in the universe. Nothing dodgy." He began to walk. If Jolene wished to continue, she would have to follow him away from the bridge. She did, catching up a moment later. "Lying to your devotees to keep them here could be construed as, well, malpractice. So I'm very sorry to say we'll have to shut you down." Clew turned on her, pausing in his step. "Who did you say you're with?" "Murphy." Jolene met his frustration with stubborn satisfaction. "Murphy," Clew said, the implication clear in his voice. "Not the government?" Jolene waved as if to head Clew off. "No, but we have a vested interest in your doctrine. That's why we're here first." She ended with a patronizing squint. Clew paused, refusing to allow the woman to get under his skin. "To do what?" "I already said, we have a job for you." Clew straightened his posture to reassert his position. "Employment is a very terrestrial concept. I prefer to remain unsullied by such a pursuit." Jolene mocked Clew with a talking hand motion. "Nice. You're super holy and all that. We're offering you a new ministry with a new congregation on a new planet." "What planet?" Clew asked before he had a chance to quash his curiosity. Jolene gave that same knowing squint and shook her head. "I'm afraid I can't say any more. Once you're in agreement, I'll take you on location and give a full briefing." "I'm needed here," Clew said, adding a slight bow for good measure. "I'm sorry." He began to walk again towards a sizable Japanese maple tree, whose branches hung just over his head. "The alternative is prison, dummy," Jolene called after Clew. She was slouching and had a peeved expression. Clew turned, finding himself glaring at the woman. Jolene took several deliberate steps in Clew's direction. "Laurasian governments don't often tolerate your brand of spiritual manipulation." "There is no manipulation," Clew said, shaking his head and raising his eyebrows. Jolene stopped, a playful smirk overtaking her face. She raised a finger. "Detainment of civilians." She raised another. "Abduction. Defrauding your followers to pay for this compound. Having your followers defraud their families. A surprising amount of hush money, which is actually how we discovered you. I must say, you've made a very profitable business. Oh, and there's those teenagers." Clew paused, a spike of fear shooting through him. "What?" Jolene pumped her fist. "Heck yeah, man. We got everything on you. 23 of your followers are underage, which adds kidnapping to your list of crimes. This may be the Wild West so far as Laurasia goes, But it turns out taking people's kids ain't cool. Crazy, right? Clew knew he should leave, throw this woman out, and immediately contact his lawyer. No one is here by force, he said, against his better judgment. You aren't listening. Jolene tapped her temple. Judgment is already passed, but you get to make a decision. You can dissolve your little group here and come with me today, or armed officers will arrive tomorrow and set your followers free. Those with spiritual inclinations are accustomed to persecution, Clew said. You don't qualify to decry persecution, Jolene said. This is happening, like it or not. Clew's breathing deepened. I can verify if what you're saying is true with a single call. Please do. I'll wait here. Clew cursed inside. He would call, but her confidence was starting to annoy him. He pointed at the ground. I created a home for those on their intermediary journey to the hereafter. Jolene bobbed her head. Ah, so you did create this place. That confession will speed your conviction after your arrest tomorrow. Clew stilled his breathing and kept himself from fidgeting. Displays of stress were something he stopped long ago. Pure confidence helped build trust among the transients. Okay, he said, failing at projecting confidence. Okay, just give me some time to pick my successor. Jolene gave Clew a look of patronizing sympathy. This place will not survive you. There is no successor. From where I stand, I'm your only option to continue your ministry. You should probably do what I say. Clew huffed, unable to see Jolene as anything but an outsider, trying to destroy a community he had nurtured since the settlement of Laurasia. What exactly do you want from me? Jolene shrugged, displaying a frustrating level of indifference and irreverence. Personally, I don't want anything from you. Never been into monks with fake accents. But Murphy wants you to replicate what you've done here for us. You still get to be a spiritual leader and help people on their intermediary journey, as you like to call it. She gave mocking air quotes. Clew watched her for any possible subtext that could testify to hidden intent. He had always felt a keen understanding of people, but those who played their own game were always worthy of distrust. I see, he said at last. Jolene examined her nails, painted a dark, glittery blue. You'll have funding, since your new followers won't have the financial means to support you. Clew never stopped watching her. She was either telling the truth or very good at manipulating. I'll need some time at least to verify your story from every angle. Jolene gave a pouting face. Don't you trust me, Holiness? Not for a second, Clew said. If I find a whisper of a lie from you, I'm not going anywhere. Fine, Jolene said, righting her posture and giving a head bob. I'd start your investigation with law enforcement, as they're the most neutral party involved. But for now, I'll give you this. She withdrew a digital clipboard from her pocket that she unfolded and handed to Clew. Clew took the device, examining it. What's this for? You don't have lens implants, so this will be your Murphy portal, Jolene said. Oh, and it has your ticket. My ticket? Just follow the instructions, Jolene said. Try to arrive a few hours early. I recommend saying goodbye to your followers tonight. We'll be on a schedule. Dread pooled in Clew's stomach at the thought of saying goodbye to the transients. Being truthful, opening up in that way was not something he knew how to do. Not since his prior life. It was better to maintain a wall between him and others. He really could make all his calls in transit. Clew closed the clipboard and pocketed it. No need. Let's go. After a fitful night's sleep in the only hotel Murphy would pay for, Clew arrived with Jolene at the spaceport's terminal. While Earth was prohibitively far for any meaningful travel between Sol and Laurasia, travel between planets within the system had become common. The terminal buzzed with people. A massive glass wall stretched the length of the terminal. Out on the launch pad, an explosion of fuel lifted a rocket from the ground. It rose into the air with a guttural roar. Clew paused to watch the takeoff. That would be him in an hour. He placed his hand on the glass wall. Jolene appeared beside Clew, watching the rocket ascend into the hazy sky. This early in the morning, the angle of the sun turned the air a thick, pure orange. "Sleep okay?" Jolene asked. "That bed could have been a little more comfortable," Clew replied, too groggy and ornery to put up with her personality. He never left his living quarters in the morning without an hour of meditation and burning incense. "Not everyone can afford a cotton mattress," Jolene said in her teasing tone. "You work for Murphy," Clew said. Jolene hedged her feet. "Yeah, but they aren't exactly into paying for shit." "I see. Please inform your superiors. I expect them to spare no expense if they want my ministry," Clew said. "Okay, John Hammond." "Will you tell me where we're going now?" Clew asked. "It says on your ticket, dummy," Jolene said. "We're headed to Rodinia. Our gate is right over there." Clew's insides plummeted. Rodinia was just about the least habitable planet in the Laurasian system. Not that he knew much about such things. "That's a bad environment for a spiritual being seeking enlightenment." Jolene's glare lost its playfulness. "The poor don't get to choose their environment, O enlightened one." Clew shrugged, as if unable to help the situation. "I've never had an interest in ministering to the poor." Jolene tilted her head, face aghast in confusion. "I'm pretty sure that idea is against the union rules of assholes who create cults. Besides, don't the downtrodden most easily achieve spirituality?" Clew turned from her to look out over the spaceport tarmac. Flight crews were rushing in to reset the launch pad for the next rocket that was already rolling backwards into place. He twisted his lips. "People seek spirituality for many reasons. The poor do so to align themselves with the powerful. It's a means of stability for them, not a spiritual journey." Jolene fidgeted, her first action that Clew considered unintentional. "Spirituality grounds the weary mind. Do not judge the poor because their needs differ from yours, Clew." Clew smiled, believing her words to be the most honest she had ever been with him. "How uncharacteristically wise of you." Jolene returned her own smile with squinted eyes that hid a patronizing glint. "You don't know me. You haven't seen anything yet, bitch." She walked away, leaving a stunned Clew behind. The next rocket's base had reached the launch pad and was now tilting into an upright position. "Come on, Holiness," Jolene called back at Clew as she approached their flight gate. Clew and Jolene gathered with the other patrons in preparation for the boarding process. Never having flown in space before, Clew followed Jolene's example. The process differed significantly from the aeroplanes on Earth that Clew had ridden in the 21st century. For starters, there was no walkway to enter the cabin. Instead, boarding happened right there in the terminal. Rows of seats, stacked 3 levels high, waited for their passengers to sit. The wall behind the seating had a massive circular hole, which opened right into the rocket's cabin. The seating would back into the cabin on tracks that lined the floor. "Up here," Jolene said, climbing stairs to the second level of seating. She led him to a row near the middle and sat him down. The seatbelt was a monstrosity of complexity, requiring a steward to rescue Clew from all the straps and buckles. The pre-flight check consisted of ensuring no loose items would come loose in the cabin during takeoff, or when gravity ceased pulling down. When all was finished, a buzzer sounded. The stacked seating backed from the spaceport into the rocket waiting behind. They locked into place, trapped in the metal cylinder, yet looking forward into the spaceport. The rocket backed up, and the massive nose swung down, locking into place. The entire apparatus taxied backwards. At last, it stopped, and they were rotating upright. Clew shifted from a regular sitting position to laying. "Prepare for liftoff," a voice said over the speakers. Clew waited, and waited. Nerves fidgeted in his stomach. He glanced at Jolene, who waited with closed eyes for the launch. "What will my new congregation look like?" Clew asked to distract himself. "I know little of Rodinia." Jolene kept her eyes closed. "Let's just get there first. You'll have plenty of time to figure it all out." "I'm just trying to find something to talk about," Clew said, trying not to panic over the fact that a rocket would ignite under him at any moment. "I've never flown in space." Jolene groaned. "The takeoff is bumpy and we'll lose gravity. As a passenger, that's all you need to worry about." Clew opened his mouth to respond, but found his tongue had retreated to his stomach. The whole cabin lurched, and his back pressed into his seat. They were in the air, hurtling for the stars. The shaking stopped after a few minutes. The rocket had cleared the most dense layers of the atmosphere, replaced by an ominous quiet. The rocket's forward momentum matched Avalonia's gravitational pull, resulting in a total loss of gravity within the cabin. Clew closed his eyes, wishing this experience to be over. Unfortunately, the feeling of weightlessness lasted for 5 hours. Jolene had not told Clew the duration of the flight until hour 3. "You're a very frustrating person, you know," Clew said. "I get that," Jolene said. "I just don't care enough to do anything about it." The 5-hour flight ended with a 2-hour docking procedure. "I suppose I should have just killed you and revived you on Rodinia," Jolene mused in response to Clew's face. "That might have been more merciful," Clew said, counting down the seconds to when he would be allowed to undo his seatbelt. After exiting to the space station, Clew followed Jolene along a low-gravity corridor to a freight ship traveling to Rodinia. The rocket had taken them out of the Avalonian atmosphere and into orbit. Now they needed to actually travel from Avalonia to Rodinia, which Jolene claimed took a long time because of the distance and differing orbital speeds. The journey would take 4 months, but with 2 notable improvements over their prior vessel. First, they would have gravity, thanks to a rotating section of the ship. Second, Clew had a bed that wasn't altogether horrible. Now he just had to figure out how he was going to spend 4 months with Jolene. Clew was preparing for sleep when Jolene approached, carrying a water bottle. The cramped quarters had several bunk beds and a table. The ground had a perceptible curve to it that always managed to stay pointed down. "Think fast, dummy," Jolene said, dumping the water out over Clew's head. Clew flinched, but the water curved away from his head and right into Jolene's open mouth. "Welcome to the Coriolis effect," Jolene said, lips wet and clearly proud of herself. "I messed that up on several unfortunate souls before you." "Thank you for practicing beforehand," Clew said. "This rotation is disorienting." "I'd like to say you get used to the wonky gravity, but you probably won't, so why bother?" Clew shook his head. "You're really not going to tell me any more about this new ministry." Jolene shrugged, climbing past Clew into the very bunk that he was preparing to sleep in. She sprawled out and yawned. "I didn't come to explain the situation to you." "You just came to blackmail me and call me names," Clew said, unable to hide the resentment in his voice. "Yeah, that pretty much sums it up," Jolene said, looking upwards at the underside of her stolen bunk. "Try to make the best of the trip, shit for brains. And remember, we own you." She gave Clew a too eager smile before rolling over to sleep.